In what is being described as a tribute to the esoteric and impactful journalistic storytelling that you would find in the pages of The New Yorker, Wes Anderson returns with his latest movie, which is perhaps his most Wes Anderson movie of all time, and it features an army of different stars. Timothée Chalamet, Léa Seydoux, Benicio del Toro, Adrien Brody, Frances McDormand, Owen Wilson, Jeffrey Wright, and the list goes on and on and on. And I don't want to spoil too much because for a big part of the French Dispatch, you are waiting for those cool surprises. Tilda Swinton is also a standout in this movie as well. This is a film about a wacky artistic magazine that is inserted into a Kansas newspaper, and it's about a bureau that's set up in this small town in France, and it's filled with all kinds of colorful writers that approach the art and culture and society that exists within this small French community from a completely different set of perspectives. So what we get with this movie is a bunch of these little episodic vignettes that are very much chapter-based, as if you're rifling through the magazine itself. Each story within the film goes off in a completely different direction. Jeffrey Wright's story, I think, was the standout one for me. He plays a food critic or a food writer that talks about the culinary world of this small town, and he gets caught up in this police drama with a kidnapping and some gunfire. It escalates into utter insanity, but at the heart of it, Jeffrey Wright still has to talk about the food somewhat. And Bill Murray plays the curmudgeonly but kind-hearted editor that really believes in his writers and their paths to find truth in the words that they put down on paper. And so he has these really cool intersections and moments with each one of these headliner writers. One of them is Owen Wilson, who rides a bicycle around this small town and tries to paint the most colorful picture he can of the world that he is living in. Another big marquee story in the movie, but also in this fictional French Dispatch magazine, is the one that Tilda Swinton is writing about this psychotic institutionalized murderer who is also an incredible artist who becomes world-renowned for his paintings, and all of the commentary that exists within the storytelling there about how if you're an artist, you should be given some extra freedoms to kind of live your life the way that you want to. So some interesting examinations there. Timothée Chalamet's storytelling, he's paired up with Frances McDormand, is all about the youth empowerment movement in France and fighting for what you believe to be true and right. And of course, Frances McDormand is this wizened, very experienced journalist who comes into contact with all these kids that are fighting for something they feel so strongly about. And so there's an interesting intertwine there. And of course, everything is framed with the same kind of textures and color palettes and even 4x3 or squared off framing that we've come to expect out of Wes Anderson pictures. But it is a pretty sprawling amount of story that we're dealing with here, even within the confines of those squared frames that Wes Anderson plays in. And you can tell there's this really showy, stagey emphasis on practical effects, almost as if we're going to a theater to watch a play. You'll see scenery kind of just be shuttled in and shuttled out. And we even have a play within the movie which comes off incredibly well. It's a play based off of one of the stories. It's interesting to see how there's connective tissue between these different storylines and these different writers, and there's all kinds of zany characters that exist on the periphery of these star writers as well. It's just a joy to behold. Like, it's a weird movie. It knows it's weird. It knows it's going out of the way to kind of paint this beatific picture of this period in time. This idea of a magazine that's home to these idealists and their visions and their writing and their unique perspectives on the world. It's just tremendous escapism. And I just love the commitment that Wes Anderson always has to his artistic vision. I'm a huge fan of his films. Loved him since Bottle Rocket, loved the Royal Tenenbaums and Rushmore, Moonrise Kingdom and the Grand Budapest Hotel. I mean, this guy has got a style. Even his animated stuff, Fantastic Mr. Fox and Isle of Dogs, and there is an animated sequence in this film as well. He is such a quirky, wonderful voice in cinema. You know his style immediately, and this is such interesting subject matter to play with and to have fun with. It's not really deep introspection. It's not like art house, like we're going to live with these people and really get to know them. Everybody's got these weird tics and idiosyncrasies and eccentricities that make them a little larger than life, but life is filled with people like that too. And I think that's the genius in Wes Anderson's work, is that he gets these oddballs to populate his frame, and they don't feel real, but it feels like a real journey and a real escape. This is a wonderful movie. I absolutely loved it. Wes Anderson has become one of my favorite filmmakers out there. If you're not a fan of his, this is not going to be the movie that turns you into one. I will say that. But I really did love this one. I'm going to give The French Dispatch a 9 out of 10.